2.6. How do we prepare a debtors journal and a debtors allowances journal? In short, a DJ and a DAJ. So in grade 8, you have already learned that transactions are never entered directly into the general ledger, but that it has to be entered into a subsidiary journal, also called a book of first entry, first. It should be clear that the general ledger will be very clumsy and won't include details like to who we have sold and the source documents used, etc., if we were to enter every credit transaction or return of goods directly into it. So the new subsidiary journals we are going to use to record credit sales transactions and returns by debtors are known as the debtors journal and the debtors allowances journal. Now these two journals are exclusively used for transactions where merchandise is sold on credit to debtors, or where debtors return merchandise to us. So up to now you have been used to the CPJ and the CRJ, which is quite lengthy journals. When you now look at the debtors journal, you will see the debtors journal are very short and sweet. Now what I mean by that is this debtors journal only consists of 2 columns and there's no sundry accounts added afterwards. It only consists of sales and cost of sales column. Now let's go and look in detail at what each of these columns would mean. Our first column is our document number column. Now in the document number column, the specific number of the credit sales invoice is entered so that it is easy to refer back to the duplicate later, should you have any queries about the transaction that took place. So if the debtor comes in, they aren't happy with some of the entries we put into the debtor's ledger, into their personal account, we can always go and refer back to the specific date and day and document to show them this is the proof that the transaction really happened. Our next column is the day column. So the day, because the month appears in the heading of the debtors journal, it is only necessary to indicate the day on which the transaction took place. Our third column is the name of the debtor. Now the name of the debtor, in this column the name of the specific debtor to whom the goods were sold is entered. It has to be the same name that appears in the credit sales invoice. It has to also be the same name that will appear in the debtor's ledger so that we can link up the journal entry with the correct individual account in the debtor's ledger. Our fourth column is the folio column. Now the folio column is used to enter the folio number of the specific debtor's personal account in the debtor's ledger to whom we sold on credit. So it indicates that the transaction has been posted to the personal account of the debtor. So technically you will only start to fill in this column once you start to post to the relevant ledger accounts in the debtor's ledger. Our next column is sales. So in other words, the selling price of each transaction is entered into the sales column. So at the end of the month, the column total is posted to the debit side of the debtor's control account, because debtor's control is an asset that needs to increase on the debit side. So therefore sales increases debtor's control. So the column total is also posted to the credit side of sales, because sales is an income that indirectly increases the owner's equity. So in other words, this column here will then be posted to debtor's control and sales. Debtor's control debit side, sales on the credit side. Our final column is then the cost of sales. Now cost of sales is the cost price of the merchandise in each transaction, and it is entered into the cost of sales column. So at the end of the month, this column total is posted to the debit side of cost of sales, because cost of sales is an expense that indirectly decreases the owner's equity. The column total is also posted to the credit side of trading stock, because trading stock is an asset that needs to be decreasing. Now, it is also important to understand that when a credit sale transaction happens, it is immediately entered into the debtor's journal. It is also immediately posted to the debtor's personal account in the debtor's ledger, so that we can know exactly how much each debtor owes us at any given point in time. The column totals, however, sales and cost of sales, those are only posted to the general ledger at the end of the month. So at the end of the month, the debtors list is still drawn up to confirm the accuracy of the debtors control account balance. Our returns journal is then the debtors allowances journal. And let's look at the debtors allowances journal then together. Firstly, we get the document number column. Now the document number, in the document number column, the specific number of the credit note issued to the debtor is entered, so that it is easy to refer to the duplicate should the debtor have any queries about the returns. The second column is the day column. Now, because the month, as you can see there, in which the transactions take place appears in the heading of the debtors allowances journal, it is only necessary to indicate the day on which the transaction took place in this column. Our third column is then the name of the debtor. So name of debtor, in this column, the name of the specific debtor who has returned the goods is entered. It has to be the same name of that appears on the invoice, and also it needs to be the same name that I would take this entry to in my debtors ledger. The fourth column is the folio column. So the folio column is used to enter the folio number of a specific debtor who returned the goods. So it needs to be the personal account in the debtor's ledger's number. It indicates that the transaction has been posted to the personal account of the debtor and the account was decreased. So far, there is no difference between my debtors journal and my debtors allowances journal. The only thing is that it records when sales took place in the debtors journal, and I record when returns take place in the debtors allowances journal. When I now, however, go to the two final columns, the second last column is different. In the debtors journal, my second last column was sales. In the DAJ, my second last column now is debtors allowances. So therefore sales gets replaced by debtors allowances. So my income account is now replaced by an expense account called debtors allowances. So debtors allowances, the column, that is the selling price of the goods that is returned. And it's entered into the debtors allowances column. So at the end of the month, this column total is posted to the debit side of debtors allowances, because it's an expense that decreases the owner's equity. The column total is also posted to the credit side of debtors control, because it is an asset that needs to decrease. Remember, when a return took place, the debtor is not going to still pay for those goods. So therefore we decrease the amount that they owe us in debtors control. Then the final column is cost of sales. Now cost of sales is the exact opposite again of what happened in the DJ. So the cost price of the merchandise returned is entered into the cost of sales column. Now at the end of the month, the column total is posted to the debit side of trading stock because the asset needs to increase. Remember, because they are returning the goods, I can take those goods back, put it onto the shelf and sell it to someone else. So therefore the stock has been returned and increases my stock in my shop. The column total is also posted to the credit side of cost of sales. Now because this is an expense, it actually decreases the expense, but therefore increases the owner's equity indirectly. So I'm actually reversing the expense that I created previously when I recorded the entry in the DJ. In other words, when the sale took place. So if no goods, this is important, if no goods are received back, but only discount is given, then very important, no entry is made in the cost of sales column. So this is an exemption to the DAJ. Now it is very important to understand that when any returns are made by the debtors, it should be recorded in the Debtors Allowances Journal immediately. It is also immediately reposted to the personal account of the debtor in the debtors ledger, so that the exact amount owed by the debtor is known at any given point in time. The column totals, however, the debtors allowance column and the cost of sales column, those two are only posted to the general ledger at the end of the month. So at the end of the month, the debtors list are still drawn up to confirm the accuracy of the debtors control account. Remember, I confirm accuracy by comparing the list to the debtors control account.